Well, it's official. You can't win them all, right, folks? Because the Montreal Canadiens have had some pretty good drafting success the past few years. From Cole Caulfield in 2019 to Cayden in 2020, thinking about some of the guys that fell into the Canadiens' lap. Yeah, it's true, they had the first overall pick in 2022, but Uri Slafkovsky's looking pretty good. In subsequent years, they took David Reinbacher, they took Ivan Demidov, and to various extents, these guys have been good. You can even think about the guys not taken at the top of the draft, like Lane Hutson or Jacob Fowler. But in this video, we are talking about a guy who has not been good. In fact, he hasn't even been playing. Not because he's hurt this time, but because he just hasn't been given the go-ahead to showcase whatever it is that he's got in the tank. Today, we are talking about the Laval Rocket and the unfortunate fall of Filip Mesar. Right now, the Laval Rocket are in the Final Four of the AHL playoffs. They are in the Eastern Conference Finals, going off against the Charlotte Checkers. Game 1 begins tomorrow on the 28th, but as the Laval Rocket ended up defeating the Rochester Americans in 5 games, they beat the Cleveland Monsters in 4 games. They've been doing all this in the postseason and making it this far without the services of Filip Mesar. Take a look at this post made by All the Smoke on the RHAB subreddit earlier yesterday. Lost in the sauce, Filip Mesar hasn't played a single game this postseason. I don't think a first-round pick has ever had that little amount of attention from fans. He turned 21 this year, and after a nice start of the season, he got injured and never seemed to get his groove back. He's still young, and I don't know what his future is in the organization, but that pick is really not looking good so far. Let's dive into the profile, shall we? Filip Mesar, I think, was seen by a lot of Canadiens fans as a good pickup, where they selected him 26th overall in 2022. Not necessarily because he was an amazing prospect, because he projected to being any sort of a meaningful, elite potential talent, but a lot of folks said, hey, this guy's Slovak. He was the 3rd Slovak taken in the first round of the 2022 draft, 3rd behind Uri Slafkovsky, of course, and Simon Nemec, 1 and 2. So Mesar, being a comrade of Slafkovsky, being brought into the same organization and being put in a spot to grow together, that's a really good developmental push for Uri Slafkovsky. Obviously, it's good for Mesar too, to have a buddy of his, 1st overall, getting taken by the same team, but a lot of folks saw the Mesar pick as a good one, not because of Mesar's talent per se, but because of the fact that he's Slovak and he's friends with Slav. Mesar had a pretty good draft stock heading into the 2022 draft, and he was seen by some as being a first-round pick, if not maybe a very early second-round pick. It was only Craig Button who had him taken towards the end of the second, but, sometimes Button can be the outlier here. Mesar had himself a pretty I don't want to say it was amazing kind of progression after the draft, because he played in the OHL the next 2 seasons, was under a point per game as a draft +1 player, so already that's not fantastic. But then he had another season in the OHL, didn't really have the most productive season compared to what draft +2 guys are usually able to do. Mesar was productive for Team Slovakia at the World Juniors, which was great. But then this season, he only played 42 games and had 18 points in the process with the Laval Rocket in the AHL. This guy has not been all too great, and he hasn't been utilized much either ever since the postseason began. Now, he's 21 years old, coming into some of the most important years of his entire prospect development career path, and he's really not showing that he deserves to be in this lineup, developing more of those skills. I think a lot of Canadiens folks who have been paying attention to Laval have been seeing some of the hot play out of these other younger guys who happen to be showing more potential and NHL projectability. Filip Mesar hasn't really been doing all too much of that this season, And it's making that draft pick by the Canadiens look a little bit worse, especially when you look at some of the names taken right after Mesar in 2022. Mesar hasn't played an NHL game, but just a few picks after you have Jiri Kulich, who is doing very well. Owen Beck already had NHL games played with the Montreal Canadiens. Cameron Lund, Fraser Minton, these guys are guys that have played in the National Hockey League already. And if you go down even further, you can see Matthew Poitras and Lane Hutson. So, second-round guys are already out playing Filip Mesar, although maybe Hutson is the exception and not the rule. Let's dive into the comments of that Reddit post to try and read and react to how Canadiens fans are responding to Mesar. He was a bad pick. It happens. Was he a bad pick, or did he just not work out? There's a difference between process and result. From everything I've seen, the Hughes and Gorton admin has shown excellent process thus far. Mesar always seems to catch an injury when he heats up. Also, keep in mind the 2022 draft class was pretty bad. Honestly, we're lucky that we got as much talent as we did. Studley Wonderballs says, it was not a good draft and probably the most difficult draft to project in the modern era. COVID interrupted development, leagues and tournaments were shut down, scouts were pretty much exclusively using only video to scout. It was basically a complete roll of the dice with every pick. Now, I get it. That is very easy to rationalize for the status of that 2022 draft. A lot of guys were taken a little bit higher than they probably should have been. A lot of guys were taken a lot lower, and that's kind of why you're seeing so much variance between some of these prospects and their draft rankings. Like, Mesar could have gone as high as top 20 or as low as top 60 in the eyes of the scouts that are paid to watch and analyze these prospects. So for the Canadiens to take him at the end of the first round, okay, it was good. It was a reasonable pick at the time when you consider the camaraderie there. But it does seem like a lot of Canadiens fans are trying to go out there and acknowledge their own personal disagreements with the pick back when it was made. Like this comment from MDLT97, Mesar was a bad pick since the day he got drafted. He's just a bad pick. Considering that he was undersized, his numbers in his draft year didn't wow, I'm confused as to why we picked him. He isn't a center, and he wasn't a skilled skater dropping due to his size. I liked the three forwards who went after him more, in Bysted, Kulich, and Brad Lambert. They all had better numbers, size, and skill. And I think for Mesar, a lot of it does have to do with that Slovak connection, but still. Another comment says that Mesar was a 21st overall pick in a draft that was a real big question mark because of COVID-affected junior seasons. I don't believe all other teams had him ranked as a 3rd, 4th, or 5th round pick, so if he was in that range after picking Slafkovsky, why not go for the Slovak who knows your first overall pick well? He's still young, and if he's happy in the AHL in a couple of years, who knows what he might be, but doubtful it's with the Habs, I think. And so, even though it is reasonable to say that this pick has not lived up to the expectations bestowed upon him, that Kent Hughes had a lot of other options that are probably better players now available when they selected Mesar at the draft, while that is all true, I think context speaks well back for 2022 and says that, yeah, Mesar wasn't an unreasonable pick at that time. It's just now, 3 years later, it's very easy to come to the conclusion that it might have been the wrong pick. So with that in mind, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Did Kent Hughes make a mistake with this move? It's all easy to talk about with hindsight, but of course, 2022 was 3 years ago. We didn't have the luxury of that hindsight back when the draft pick was made. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Filip Mesar and his progression as an NHL prospect. Do you think he has what it takes to inevitably become a fellow NHLer like his Slovak counterpart in Slafkovsky? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this British Ashroll sign on. And bye.